Hi everybody, this is Raymond once again for ConsequenceVideoDesigns.com. And I got the weekly email from aescripts.com a week or two ago, and in it, it had a really cool inspirational video. So it goes through all the letters, morphs using Plexus, and I thought it was pretty neat, and I started thinking about how they might have accomplished that. And I think I figured it out, so I wanted to share it with you guys. So let's go into After Effects, and here I pretty much replicated it. I just did the first three letters, A, B, C. Now it doesn't look exactly the same as the version from, I want to credit who made this. Jeff Lynn, sorry. I won't be able to pronounce your first name properly. Many apologies for that, but your video is awesome. So here we go. I hope I do you justice. So kind of quickly, what I realized when I jumped into trying to recreate this is that more than figuring out how this was done using the Plexus, I think the more important technique that comes out of this is changing mask paths and what you can do with a few different keyframes on mask paths, because once you know how to do that, it opens you up to a lot more possibilities with any effects that can use masks, not just Plexus. I'll show you what I mean here, but first let's just jump into how to do this. So let's create a new composition. That's fine. And the first thing we need is the mask paths in the shape of the letters. So let's make some text here. Make an A. Let's center it in the screen and duplicate this twice. Make a B, double click on that, make a C. So now we can create masks from text. So we'll do that with each one of these. Create mask from text, create mask from text. So now we have the text here. Let's just make them shy. We don't need them, but let's not delete them yet. So now we have, if we select these and hit M and view our masks by either clicking this button right here or hitting Command Shift H. Once we click on these, we can see the masks that make up each of the letters here. So there's A, B, and C. Let's go ahead and select all our masks. Oops. And change the mode to none. We don't really need them. Just like we don't really need to see the layers. Let's create a new Plexus layer. Plexus, I hit Command Y to create a new solid. Let's make it black just for the sake of making it black. And add Effect, Robite, Plexus. Now, we need to get these masks onto the Plexus layer. Let's move the Plexus layer up to the top. And getting back to these, let's select all these masks again. Whoops. And click the stopwatch so we get a keyframe for each of the mask path shapes. And what we're going to want to do is start with pasting one of the mask paths onto the Plexus layer. You'll want the most amount of masks that you'll need at the maximum point of your animation. So in this case, 3 is the most we're going to have. So let's select all of these layers, copy them, and paste them to the Plexus. And they're going to paste in the exact same place with the exact same properties. Let's hit M. And let's rename these so we know where on the letter they're going to be. So if you wanted to go through all of the letters of the alphabet, like in the example, some letters are going to would originally need 1, 2, or 3 masks. So let's try to keep the inside masks for all the layers, and the outside mask for all layers. And let's change the colors here so they're a little bit more drastically different. Orange and blue. All right. I want to rearrange them just because that's the way I like to do it. And let's rename them outer mask, inner mask 1, and inner mask 2. So now that we have those keyframes there, we know that's going to be our second position, so let's drag them down. Now we want to start with A, so what we're going to do is we kind of want to know what's the inner mask and what's the outer mask. So see the yellow one here is the outer mask. I'm going to drag it on top just so I have it better in my head. I'm going to select the keyframe, copy it, go ahead to the outer mask path and paste it. And already you can see it'll change from the shape of the A to the shape of the B. And that's the basic technique for this entire effect. So let's go back and grab the inner mask and copy it and paste it. Now we have this one other mask left that we don't need for A. And I found it's easy enough just to double it up with the other inner mask that you need. So we can also select mask 2, paste in that keyframe. So then when it transitions, they'll split apart and then go to the places that they need to be. So let's drag this up to a second. Now, once it becomes the B, we want it to stay there for a second. So let's move down 1 second, select all the masks, copy, paste them. Oh, and see, here's an issue that I've been running into, and I'm not quite sure why it does it. Sometimes I'm finding if you select all of these and copy all of them and paste all of them at once, they kind of get, for example, you can see the green mask, instead of staying on the outside, going from this one being the outside to this one being the outside, as you would think it would, it ends up getting switched. This one ends up going down here, or actually down to the green. The green one ends up coming up here. So this keyframe highlighted is actually equal to this keyframe here. I'm not really sure why. So to get around that, just do them one at a time. Copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. Now it stays there. And then we want it to be a C. So let's select the C outline keyframe, Command C to copy it, select all the masks, and Command V to paste in that one keyframe. So now the two inner keyframes, or the two inner masks rather, transition right into that one outer shape. So they're all going to be there. So this is the basic. A, B, C. So then we just need to get Plexus to render a few things for us. So we don't want a points renderer, but let's create a paths object. We're going to want a noise effector, and we're going to want a lines renderer. So let's close these up real quick. We'll leave the path object on all masks. Let's increase the points on each mask up to 300 and leave everything else the same. Lines renderer, want it between all groups. I think I might want to knock down the thickness over distance and the opacity over distance a little bit. Just from when I was trying this out earlier, I think that's going to end up working, but we'll tweak it a little bit later. So now let's hide these masks again so we have a better look at what Plexus is making. Command Shift H. So now there's C, B, and A. The difference is, with this sample, there's lots of noise effect in between. So let's do that. Let's close all our layers up. Whoops. There we go. And for a noise effector, through playing around with this, I found that I liked using a light for the noise effector rather than just the basic noise amplitude. I just thought it ended up looking a little bit nicer. So we're going to do Layer, New, Light, make it a point light. The intensity is 400 is pretty good. leave it as light 1. We're good there. Now we'll go to the position, and the Plexus generates all the lines at a position of Z position of 0, but the light's at negative 666.7. So let's change that to 0. Otherwise, it's not going to affect our points as much as it should. So let's go back to Plexus, go to the noise effector, use lights for noise. We can leave it on all lights since we only have one light, and keep everything at the default. And now we bump up the noise amplitude. There we go. And actually, I don't think the light is exactly centered where we want it to be. Let's hit Command-Shift-H again and drag this over so it's in the center of where our letters are going to be. Back to Plexus so we can see changes it's going to make. Bring this back to 0. And now all that's left is keyframing the noise effector, and if you want the maximum distance in your lines renderer, if you want each point to reach greater lines when it gets dispersed, then we can animate that. And if you're just doing one object to the next, it's going to be pretty easy to come in here and just set your keyframe, move down, and set your second keyframe. But if you're going to go through the whole alphabet, like in the example, you're going to have to set a ton of keyframes all the way through. So I think an easier way to control that, because the Plexus toolkit can get so crazy in here, especially if you end up having multiple path objects, multiple effectors, multiple renderers in here, things can get really confused. And when you twirl these down, each subcategory is so big that it's easy to get confused and easily lost. So what I like to do is I create a new adjustment layer, Command-Option-Y, and on that adjustment layer, add some expression control. So you go to Effect, Expression Control, and add a slider control. And then we're going to link these two values in the Plexus. So on the noise effector, I'm going to want to link the noise amplitude, and the lines renderer, I'm going to want to link the maximum distance. Let's go back to the adjustment layer. Let's hit return and rename this slider controls, or better yet, Plexus controls. And then in the Plexus, let's twirl down the Plexus controls. Select this, slider control. Let's rename the slider control noise amplitude, TUDE amplitude, and then let's duplicate that and rename this max lines distance. So let's select the Plexus, and the noise amplitude, let's option click the stopwatch there, and it's going to reveal the expression control down in the timeline. So let's hit the tilde key. So here's the expression, and in the Plexus controls, let's twirl down effects in both of these. And the noise amplitude, let's select the pick whip from noise amplitude, drag it up here to the slider under noise amplitude, and hit enter. And we're going to do the same thing with the max lines distance. Now that this is open, we'll go down to the lines renderer here. The maximum distance, we'll option click on this, take the pick whip, slide it up to max lines distance, and hit return. Now this number here is going to be the same as this number here, and this number here is going to be the same as this number here. Drag that up to 72, this is at 72. Back down to 0, it's at 0. Let's have this at 100, there we go. That should be the default. So now, when we want to animate these, we can just animate these two values here in the Plexus controls and open this up, rather than opening all of this up and trying to find the exact stopwatch we need each time. It's just going to be a little time saver. So let's open the Plexus and hit U to reveal all the keyframes. And since these are the only keyframes we have are on the masks, we're just going to have 3 open up here, so it's still not going to get really cluttered. What we're going to want to do is animate the noise amplitude and the slider. Now in the example, let's turn the volume down here. You can see when it changes from this shape and it blasts out into the really distorted plexus very quickly in 5 to 7 frames. And then it just slowly floats around for a second and a half, and then in another 5 or 6 frames goes into the next letter. So to do that, let's just hit page down a couple times to go ahead a few frames. So let's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Go ahead 7 frames and change the noise amplitude up to, well, let's just slide it up till we see what it looks like. I think that looks good. 881. Now we know at the end here, where it's into the shape of a B, we're going to want it back down to 0. But then let's back up about 7 frames. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we know this value is 881. So let's change this value to, say, 900. So it continues to animate a little bit through here, but not a ton. We want the motion to slow down a little bit. So now that we've animated the noise amplitude, let's animate the max lines distance. We want that to stay at 100 there. And here, let's bump it up to, I don't know, let's say 300. And one other thing we're going to tweak in here is add the max number of vertices to reach, maybe 15. So there's a few more in there. Let's hide those masks again. There we go. So it's 300, so we need to go back down here. Let's change this to 290. So there's a little bit of animation in there. Now we're good. So then we could just copy these keyframes and paste them in here. Since we're at the same distance, we're actually not at the same distance. So let's set this up. So we can just paste these in here and it's going to have the same values animated throughout and ending back at 0 and 100 where we want it to be. So we could continue to add in mask paths all the way through here for D, E, F, or whatever else we wanted it to be. Now, like I said at the beginning, the real value in this is realizing that you can animate mask paths. You can generate them on different layers, and then by simply creating a keyframe and pasting it onto a mask on a different layer, After Effects will automatically change that mask around for you. So, for example, here's another one that I created. Let's go back to the beginning. So, for example, in this composition, what I did was I just took some objects. Let's turn this off. I forget which I had. We had this one and the hearts. So we had these two layers. What I did was let's change these to add. If we turn this off, let's turn off the transparency. There we go. I had these shapes that I brought in. They came from Video Copilot Evolution, I believe. They're just some bonus objects that came. You just bring them in, select that object, layer, auto trace, and After Effects does a pretty good job of creating these masks here, so you don't have to trace it or create them yourself if you have an object that After Effects can auto trace. So that just gives you some masks to bring in here. That's not one we need. So it's just these two, and then as in the previous example, I traced this one too, and this one has many more masks than the heart does. So I copied all these and pasted them onto this layer first, and then just took the two different mask paths and alternated pasting them in here. The outside path would be 1, 3, 5, 7, and vice versa. And once you apply the masks, let's turn that off. Apply the stroke effect, to just generate the stroke here. And this is going to work with any effect that uses masks. For example, here's Vegas with the letters. So you just applied 3 instances of Vegas. There's 3 masks on here. Unlike the stroke, which will work on all the masks, Vegas only works on one at a time. So I'd create one, add the animation that you want to animate. For example, here, let's hit UU to reveal all these properties. I just added a simple expression to the rotation parameter, time times -50, so that automatically animates the value of the rotation. So it just keeps playing through. And then once you have the animation that you want, duplicate it for as many other masks as you have, and then change the mask path to the one that you need. The only thing that you need to remember if you're using Vegas is for the first mask path rendering, the blend mode should be transparent, but then all the rest of them need to be set to over. If you have it set to transparent, let's go back to the beginning where they're separate, or even the B, where there's all 3 of them will be separate. You're only going to see one here, so you change that to over and change this to over so you can see all of the mask path. So there you go, quick little tip that I'm finding to be really useful already, and I hope you find it useful too. Thanks a lot. Once again, this is Raymond for ConsequenceVideoDesigns.com. Have a great day. See you soon.